Get down there, lay down.
What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to another Division 2 build video. If you happen to be new to the channel, then ground and pound that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on post notifications, that way you know each and every time a new video is uploaded or a live stream goes live. Just reach up there and trigger that bell. So I have dubbed these two particular builds the Doc Holliday for the simple reasons as follow is because he was a real life badass in the Wild West, a real gunslinger, and not some fictitious movie character. Even though the movie was quite good, I will have to admit, but he still was not any Doc Holliday and was not real. But anyways, enough of my rambling. Let's hop right into the build. In the first variation, we are utilizing the Tactical M1911 with Optimist. Weapon damage is increased by 3% for every 10% ammo missing. And then, of course, Allegro for the rate of fire. And then Greased while weapon holstered. Weapon swap speed is increased by 10%. The low flex reflex sight, the 10% damage to elites on it. 11% or 11 rounds magazine. The plus 10% crit hit chance and the laser pointer, and then another 5% critical hit chance in the muzzle. So that way, no matter what activities you are doing, whether it be PvP or even PvE, then this setup is definitely viable. Just for the additional damage to elites that you have on your scope, plus all the damage you're inflicting as follows. Now let's start with the two-piece R&K, and then we'll go over the others. For having two-piece R&K, you get 10% hazard protection, and then for the second piece, you get 20% pistol damage. On the mask, we have crit chance, and then 45-80 health, and then in the talents, we have plus 20% armor regeneration. Moving on to the holster, we have 13% critical hit chance, and then of course the devastating talent, plus 5% weapon damage. I don't have any offensive mod slot or any mod in the slot due to the Optimist talent. It requires 5 or less offensive Legos, and I have 5 exactly, so that is why there is no offensive mod there. Now moving on to the second two-piece. We're not utilizing a rifle. We just want the two-piece bonus for the having 2 pieces of Overlord armament, and that is the 7.5% total armor. The attributes are 44-88 health, 6% pistol damage, and of course the devastating talent for a 5% weapon damage. Moving on to the knee pads, 6125 bonus armor is the attribute, and then of course we have another plus 20% armor regeneration. Now moving on to the other two. Instead of having on the ropes here, I prefer safeguard, and the second variation you'll understand why. But on this current one, we have 8197 bonus armor, 6% cooldown reduction, 4.5% weapon damage, and then in the mod slots, we have bonus armor, armor regeneration, 2.5% total armor, and then of course bleed damage, increase disrupt duration. We're not using any kind of skills whatsoever. I just figured I would throw a utility in this utility mod slot just for I guess shits and giggles. But okay, moving on to the second piece ghillie guard. Oh, and if you didn't know, if you didn't read it on the screen, one piece gives you 5% total armor, and two pieces gives you 20% hazard protection. So that's 30% hazard protection just from the two-piece R&K and then the two-piece ghillie guard, along with 12.5% total armor due from the ghillie guard and, of course, the Overlord. The attributes are 66-39 armor, 58-15 health, 10% weapon damage, and then, of course, we're utilizing Bloodsucker on this variation. Depleting an enemy's armor adds a stack of 20% bonus armor for 20 seconds. Max stack is 5. And yes, I know of the current changes in the PTS, but as of this very moment, whatever, hour, day, the PTS numbers, as you all know, they are constantly fluctuating and changing as the PTS goes on. So all those numbers are subject to change. Even the 3 new gear sets and all the talents that are on those gear sets are subject to change. That is why they're in the PTS. Whether it be the aces and eights for a sharpshooter, there is a gear set for the demolitionist, and then a gear set for the survivalist, but all those are still subject to change. So keep that in mind. Then, of course, in the mod slots, we have 3127 health, 4% health regen, 952 armor regeneration, And then we have another utility. And then on the second defensive mod, we have 3011 bonus armor, 3% total armor, and then 5% health regen. So that is basically this one, as you see in some of the clips that I showed you at the beginning. Also, if you want to check out an in-depth several hours of footage of nothing but this absolute monster, then I actually live streamed yesterday in the Dark Zone, utilizing nothing but this build, everything exactly as you see here on the screen. So go check that out. We were actually in the DZ. I was actually testing this build out, so be sure to go check that out. But now let's move on to the second variation of this build. As you can see, it's a little bit lower in the armor, at least by 32k, but then we have gained almost 15k in health, and it is not exactly how I want it. Now, with the other variation that I was using, I'm trying to find an R&K holster that has an active talent where I can put Blacksmith on that, right? And then keep the same pieces that you see on there and then switch out on the ropes for Safeguard. Because that would still have me at 593. I would still be below the 5 requirements for utilizing Optimist. And instead of Bloodsucker, I will be actually going with Unbreakable. So let's start with that first. If you don't know what Unbreakable is, 25% of max armor is repaired when your armor is depleted. Armor kits is used within the next 5 seconds are not consumed. But the key word is armor repaired when your armor is depleted. So, if you accompany that Blacksmith along with Safeguard, and Safeguard is killing a target grants a 100%, 50% bonus to repairing and healing effects for 20 seconds. With those two things alone, and then the other main component is Blacksmith. Killing an enemy with your sidearm repairs 25% of your armor, can occur once every 10 seconds. So killing an enemy repairs 25% of your armor. So keyword, repair. So we have, by way of Unstoppable, or Unbreakable I should say, in this slot here, which repairs your armor once it's depleted. And for getting a kill, you have an additional armor repair when you get a kill. And then, of course, you have the 40% armor regeneration. And then on top of that, that makes everything even more potent, is when Safeguard is actually activated. Killing a target grants 150% bonus to repairing skills. So, if you wanted just to leave it as is with the Bloodsucker, so for depleting someone's armor, you get a stack of armor bonus yourself. If you just want to leave that alone and not even go with the Unbreakable, just with these two things alone, because since you have to get a kill for Blacksmith to proc with your sidearm, that 25% is going to turn into roughly around 70% due to Safeguard. Because Safeguard also, it kicks in and procs once you get a kill. So that is, those two pieces right there are some definite synergy. Now, I prefer Bloodsucker, but as you see also on Unbreakable, it is also 25% of max armor is repaired. So that whole repair thing synergizes well with Safeguard and Blacksmith. It doesn't have as much survivability currently, but as soon as I find an actual R&K holster, I've been searching and cannot find one anywhere. I'm talking about absolute anywhere. But when I do, I would actually most definitely be putting it here in this slot. Just due to the simple fact of getting rid of this R&K, going back to the original one that I had on the previous variation. And as you can see, it shoots my armor up to 268 with that alone, and that's still with not having an additional defensive mod that you've seen in the previous build that gives you additional 3% armor. So that's going to put me back up at 275 once I just slap this on and then change on the ropes to Safeguard. So as soon as I find an R&K holster, if you want to go with this setup, you go with the R&K holster, and preferably instead of an offensive talent, to have either something along the lines of either skill power, skill cooldown, or even such things as additional health, just like the Holliday holster that I have on concurrently. So that way, that if you do have skill power on here, that would actually help out a little bit. But the additional health would keep my health pool up around 60k. But the most important thing, it would allow me to actually stick a mod in the mod slot. So when I'm losing devastating, such as the previous build, I'm losing 5% weapon damage. But that opens up me being able to actually stick a mod in the mod slots either on the holster or the knee pads. So that way I can get back the 5% that I'm actually losing by taking off devastating and using blacksmith. And I believe on the other, you'll see, and I showed you earlier, that I do actually have a mod with 3% pistol damage and then 1.5% weapon damage with the 1% damage to health. You probably have better ones out there. But that's basically 4.5% weapon damage that alone. So that takes up and takes care of losing the devastating talent on, like, which would stay exactly the same. So think of this build here with the 275k armor. Just instead of the devastating, you have blacksmith, and then instead of on the ropes on your backpack, you definitely want a safeguard. And just having those two things alone is going to increase your survivability drastically. Because especially if you pair it with Unbreakable, which is another repairing of armor talent, then you're going to have constant armor repair. If you don't have safeguard proc to the time of the depleting of your armor when it comes to Unbreakable, then that's quite all right. You still get 25% to help you finish off whoever you're facing, whether it be an NPC or player. Then once you do that, that is going to proc the blacksmith and the safeguard simultaneously. And then from what you didn't get from that 25% from Unbreakable, then you're going to continuously fill your way up all the way back to 100% armor just by basically having those three things synergizing together. And then along with, if you're having to drop a hill by way of chem launcher at your feet, and then of course having the 40% armor regeneration stacked on top of that, it is an absolute monster. And I searched all day for that R&K holster so that I can put blacksmith on it, and that search will continue today. But be sure to try this combination out, whether it be Bloodsucker or Unbreakable, but you definitely want to run Blacksmith along with Safeguard. Because when Blacksmith kicks in after getting a kill, and when Safeguard procs at the same exact time, that 25% repair of your armor is going to jump to around 75%. I'd say anywhere between 65 to 75%. So just my math skills, I'm not a PhD, I'm not mathematic, but that's just maybe a guesstimation on the exact amount of armor you're actually going to get back from Safeguard and Blacksmith. And of course, the Blacksmith talent is changing and is subject to change. The current change in the PTS is instead of 25%, it's going to 50%. So also keep that in mind and keep an eye on that when making this build for all things PTS and the changes that are subject to change, that are concurrently changing. And yeah, so I'll actually do an update once all the PTS numbers and all the finalizations of the changes will come out. So that way, I can bring you the same builds with the updated stats on them and also the updated requirements of said builds. So here is the talents sheet. Scrolling on down to the tactical 1911, 49.296 weapon damage, 32% crit chance, 100% headshot damage, 25% crit damage, 1.7 reload time, 3.5% reload speed bonus, 24.5% all weapon damage, 15% damage to LMG, 15% SMG, 36% pistol damage. So if you combine the 36 pistol damage to the 24.5, then we have a total of 60.5% pistol damage. 275k armor, 45k health, 24,560 health regen, 30% hazard protection, 30% bleed, blind, 50% burn, 30% disorient, 30% disrupt, 30% shock, 6% skill cooldown. But yeah, definitely Try this out. It is an absolute monster in the Dark Zone, as you've seen in the clips provided, as well as go check out that live stream where I completely destroy all the players that are in my path. It is completely fun, so definitely go use the Doc Holiday. But thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate all the love and support. We'll see you punching later.